Atazai. Okay, so we really learned this on Erev Shabbos, but we'll learn it again. Amar Bzeir, Amar Rav Masna, Amar Shmuel. Tchelas. And Rashi says that when it says Tchelas in the Gemara, it means Tzitzis, the whole mitzvah of Tzitzis.
Right.
Tchelas, Ein Ba Mishum Klaim. There's no din Klaim when it comes to Tchelas, meaning the whole Halchas Klaim were suspended when it comes to the mitzvah of Tzitzis. Va'afilu betalis petura. Even in a talis that's potter. Frag the Gemara, my talis petura. What does it mean, a talis that's potter, there's no din Klaim? In other words, a talis that's potter from the mitzvah of Tzitzis still will be exempt from the Isra Klaim. If you're going to say that the reason why this talis is petura from the mitzvah of Tzitzis is because it's too small. Vatanya, we learned, in fact, a talis that's too small will be governed by the Isurim of Klaim. Because the Brisa teaches us, talis shakotan miskasa by roisha v'rubai, if the talis is big enough for a kotan to cover roisha v'rubai. The halacha is, and v'agodol yoytzeba derech arai, and even an adult would wear it. He won't be embarrassed to wear something so small. He'll wear derech arai if it has those two tnoim chayev es betzitzis. But if it's missing one tnai, eina kotan miskasa by roisha v'rubai. Even if a gadol would wear it, he wouldn't be embarrassed to wear it. But a cotton can cover a rosh v'rubai. Petura, it's potter from tzitzis, and the Brisa adds v'chein le'inyin kalayim. So the Gemara wants to know, what does it mean v'chein le'inyin kalayim? Vavinimba, my v'chein le'inyin kalayim. If you're going to say that there's no Easter kalayim on a small baguette, that there's no Isra Klaim on the small baguette, but that's not true. There is no shear to the baguette lagabe the Isra Klaim. V'yanantanan ein arai beklaim, meaning even a tiny little baguette, if it's Klaim, it's going to be awesome. V'yomer Rab Nachman Yitzchak v'chein le'inyin saden betzitzis. What does the Brisa mean when the Brisa says v'chein le'inyin Klaim? It means if it's too small a baguette, and therefore it's potter from tzitzis. If you put tzitzis of klayim, it'll be chayiv for the klayim. So you can't tell me that pshat in the Gemara on the Beis means vafilu talis petura will suspend the isur klayim for the mitzvah of tzitzis because we see clear from this brisa nishtazoi that even a small beggar that's petura from tzitzis will be chayiv in the isur klayim. Elamai Ptura. So what did Reb Zeir mean on Amud Beis when he said that a beged that's a beged that's Ptura, a talis Ptura still does not have the Isra Klaim? It must be Hittel Lemuteles. Why is it Ptura? Because you have a beged that already has 4 tzitzis on it, and you now put another 4 tzitzis on it because you were planning to take off the first 4. Even there won't be a problem of Klaim. So if you had a beged made out of sadin, and you put cheles on it, the second set, after you already had a first set, that's a beged that's petura. Nevertheless, there won't be an Isra Klaim.
It's not really petura. It's not chayev.
I don't understand what you're saying.
It's not really petura. It has already. This why that's petura.
You mean it shouldn't be called a beged that's petura?
Yes,
you tell me it has tzitzis on it, but that shouldn't be called a beged petura.
Right.
I hear, but there's a very important point that we have to bring out now that you brought this up, and Rashi points this out. Elamai petura de ka'amela il va'afilu b'talis petura k'goyin hita lemutelas, and here's the punchline: the chishoy rachmon the klayim b'tzitzis legamri ishtru. It's not saying that while you're Mekayim the mitzvah, you have an Asay Doich Aloyshaseh, and you're governed by Reish Lakish's limitations, that if you could possibly be Mekayim both, you try to be Mekayim both. No. It's a Chiddush by Klayim, it's not a regular Asay Doich Aloyshaseh. The Torah is telling you, when it comes to the mitzvah of Tzitzis, there is no din Klayim at all. So Mamela, even though this beged already has 4 tzitzis, and you don't need to put another set of tzitzis on, but there's no din climb when it comes to tzitzis. And therefore, you're allowed to put on the second set. Zok to Gemara, V'hanan tanan, I'm sorry, so we did that already. So, if the whole chiddush of upatura, afilu b'talas patura, means you're putting on a second pair of tzitzis, hita lemutelas, didn't your observer already say that beferish, that you're allowed to put on tzitzis onto mutelas? Zok Gemara in the Chanami, chada mechlal l'chavat itmar. Zok Rashi, your observer just said tila mutelas is kosher. Someone said over from Zera, if he baal to yol tila mutelas is kosher, it must be that he also holds that there wouldn't be a din shabbos. Tanu Rabbanan, talis kfula chayeves betzitzis. You have a talus that's, let's say, 24 inches by 60 inches, 2 feet by 5 feet, too long for you. So you fold it over, make it smaller, so it should be easier to use. So the halacha is chayeves betzitzis. It will be chayev tzitzis, meaning you could put the tzitzis on the fold. Rab Shimon poiter. Rab Shimon says you can't put it on the fold. Therefore, if you fold it over, it'll be potter. She'im tifashet. If you're going to spread it out and open it up, nimt tzitziyos b'em tziyusa. Okay? Vishavin, everybody agrees. Shim kaflo v'tofra. If you fold it over the tzitzis and you sewed it together, shechayeves, that will be chayiv in tzitzis. Now, this in itself is shver, as Rashi points out, that we learned on Lamed Zayin Amud Beis, Haiman de chayte leglima. If even you sew it, the halacha is you can't put the tzitzis on the fold, and the Gemara there told us because eventually you're going to open it up. So, for Rashi, how does this Gemara shtim with that Gemara? Tosfos over there asks the same kasha, and they don't give a teretz. It must be a machloikis and sukkis. Okay, frekt Gemara pshita. Pshita, that if it's folded together and sewed, it should be chayiv. So Gemara lo tzricha de nokta besichi. He didn't make a proper seam, permanent seam. There's 2 pshatim in Rashi. Either he used like pins to hold it folded, or the stitches that he made were like based stitches. Sometimes when you go to a tailor, what he'll do is he'll measure you up and then he'll make these big white stitches just to make sure he has it measured right, and then later on you leave it by him and he does the real stitching. So it's not like a permanent type of stitching. So you might think that it would be potter from tzitzis. Kamashlan, there would be enough that you could also put the tzitzis on the fold. Rabba Bar Huna ikloy levei Rava Bar Rav Nachman and Chazra Davamichsi Talis Kvula. He was wearing just such a talis Kvula. V'rami lechute ila kvela. And he was wearing the tzitzis folded up, and that's where the tzitzis were placed on the fold over. And the shita, he opened it up, also chuta v'kam la'adoration, and now the chutim were by his head. So Amalei, so he told him. So I guess Rabbah told him, Lav hainu kanav tekasav rachmana b'raisa. This isn't alakana psil chelis. This is not what the Torah is mechayiv you. So what did he do? Osir shadye, he took it off because he didn't have proper tzitzis on it. Ichse gli machriti, and he put on another beged. Amalei. So Rabbi told him, you think that helps? Mi sovers chayvers gavru. You think the whole mitzvah tzitzis is that punk you're wearing such a beged you have to have tzitzis? No, it's in the beged. Chayvers talasu. So therefore, even though you're not wearing it, zil ramila, you need to put tzitzis on this talus. So somebody asked me, I don't understand. How is it that if he unfolded it, now the tzitzis that are in the middle of the beged, it's by his head? The top tzitzis should be by his head. That's in the middle. So how is it by his head? I told him very poshut. There's some big rebbes, they have 2 ataris, right? They have one over here and one over there. Why? Because they're not even sure where their head is. So they have to cover all the bases. So could be that's what it means. I mean, could be, I don't know. Chaim sitting here, I'm nervous, he's going to give me a slap. Zog to Gemara weiter. Leima misayele. Maybe we could bring a raya that the tzitzis is a chiv on the beged, whether you're wearing it or not a chiv on you when you're wearing such a beged. Because the Gemara tells us, when we had this Gemara earlier, Chasidim Arishonim, the Friedrich Chasidim, Kivin sha'argu b'sholosh, the moment, if they were weaving a beged that was 10 feet long, but once they hit 3 fingers, which is the minimum size of a beged, hayu matilim b'atchelet, they put tzitzis in right away. So you see clearly that it's in the beged, because even though you're not going to be wearing it till it's completed, but now this beged is the minimum size beged that needs tzitzis, so you see that to put it in right away. So Aktamar, what are you talking about? Chassidim do lefnim mishur sadin. Shiny Chassidim the machri and avshayu. You can't bring me right from Chassidim. They put it on even though it's not mechuyev in tzitzis. Upligi the malacha, and we're arguing on the malachim. Could you imagine? The Gemara says it's ki'ilu like it's routine. Yeah, it's a machlokes the malachim and these amayroyim. It's like routine. The malacha ashkechel Rav Katina. A malach bumped into Rav Katina. He met Rav Katina. In our days, you don't just meet malachim by walking down the street. Rav Katina, he met malachim. It was a normal thing. The Gemara is not even matmiyah and making a big deal about it. It's like he met Yankel on the street. He met the malach on the street. This is the type of eating that we're talking about.
Could be we do, but we don't know they're malachim.
But Ed Geret learning with the malach. Look at this. We get to learn. Achkel Rav Katina, the Michsi Sadina. He saw that he was wearing a talus of sadin. And we know that in Yerushalayim, the Olam didn't put tzitzis on the sadin. Why didn't they put tzitzis on the sadin? The Mashkal in the Gemara was, from Rabbi Zera, is that maybe it's going to be mixed up with a ksus laila. He might put on a ksus laila, which is potter from tzitzis. Right? That's what the Gemara came out. So he told him, Amar lei, the Malach said, Katina, Katina. Maybe this only a Malach can say. Sadina b'kaita. When the weather's warm in the spring and summer, you wear satin because it's light, and you don't have the mitzvah tzitzis. And come the winter, v'sarbala b'sisfu. And what are you going to wear in the winter? You're going to wear sarbala pelts, which weiter is not mechuyev in tzitzis. Rashi says because it's round, I guess the way they were made. Sarbala kagon oison shalonu sheinagulin, they're round. Vein lo ela shnei knafayim. So I'm not sure exactly what they are, but they don't have 4 corners. So therefore, if you're never going to wear a beged that's going to be mechayiv you in tzitzis shel tcheles ma'atei aleh, what's the zayim with mitzvah for tzitzis? So Rav Katina says, so what do you want from me? So if I'm not wearing such a beged, I'm not mechayiv. Amaloyan shisu asay, I'm going to get punished for not being mekayim asay. Amar lei, normally you don't get punished for missing an asay. However, bisman the ikar rischa on shidon. When there's a rischa, when there's a kitrug, then someone will even get punished for not doing the asay. Now it's very important. A mitzvah chiyuvis you get punished for if you don't do. We're talking about a mitzvah that's not a chiyuvis, as Toshva says, and shidno asay ki hai she'eino mechayiv liknois talis hamechuyev imein loy. Aval asay gomar afilu bezin shalamat makanoisoi ad shetei nabshoy. So to Gemara. Now that we heard this conversation with the Malach, we can analyze this. If there's no chiv to put it on the beged, it's just a chayv on the person if he's wearing a beged. When you can hear why there's a tfi on him from the Malachim, that he should be mechuyev because he's not being mekayim a mitzvah that's on the gavra. The lekarami. If it's only a chiv on the talis, there's no chiv on a person. So I don't understand. If I don't have a house, am I going to get patched that I don't have a mezuzah? I don't have a house. So it's not a mitzvah on me. So what are you going to tell me? From the Malach, he sees a chayvis gavra? Even if it's a chayvis gavra. If you have a talus and you're wearing a talus that's a bas chiyuva, so there's a chayvis gavra. Ki michse talus la bas chiyuva, mi chayver rachmana. Ella, and Rashi goes Ella, meaning it's taka not totally. The malach mourning of Katina is not totally in whether or not it's chayvis gavra or chayvis abeged. It looks like you're being mavakish tachbulos, you're looking to get out of a mitzvah. That is not appropriate, and that is something that you'll get punished for b'shas rischay. Toshva says it's still a raya that the malach holds that it's chayvas hagavra, because if you look at the Toshva says Hachik amaloi. He doesn't say ella. He just hachik amaloi. Tatzteki lemifter navshecha mitzitzis umikomokim ilav chayvis gavra still loy shaykh lemiyanin shaleha kiven delaslei. So Toju says it remains still a raya that the malach held chayvis gavra, but if the kunjus gar is ella, meaning ella to hold of him shot, meaning it's not totally in chayvis gavra chayvis beged. Either way, it would be a problem. Umashmad loy muchach midi is no raya at all. So the halacha lemaisa, the shaila is, was there a raya or not from the malach that a person is mechuyev in tzitzis or not, to go out of his way to have tzitzis. So I always had a question on lutvaks, because lutvaks wears something called a kapota. Be'etzem a kapota has four corners. Nor they bedafk around one of the corners to avoid being mechayev in tzitzis. So ich verstehe nicht. Why is that not tatzteki lemifter atzchom tzitzis? You know, there's a law. Sometimes you could create a complex structure of finance because you want to avoid taxes. And the law in tax is, if there's no business reason why you should have done that, and it's clear you only set it up that way to avoid taxes, that's called tax evasion. If you could say, no, I structured it this way because works out best for the business, for the zach, for the cheshbon, so then Hagavach punkt it comes out that you don't have to pay tax because of it. But if it's clear you only did it because of a tax, to save tax, that's called tax evasion. So the only reason why they rounded that kapota is to avoid tzitzis. So I'm not trying to chas v'shalom be mekatrik on Gedolei Yisrael, but it's a very interesting thing. The only thing that I'll add is someone once told me, what does an ambulance and a kapota have in common? So he told me, very simple. They both have two doors in the back, and both are very sick people inside. So weiß ich nicht. See, that you wear packages. Packages, you don't have a problem. They don't have four corners.
Depends how high the slit is.
I guess so. Yes, so.
No, it's only a little bit. Then it's not four corners.
There's not a corner. Yeah.
Yeah.
But usually, but a kapota, the slit goes all the way up. It's like 4 or 5. If they would be there in the skirt, they'd put them in the chayrim. So to Gemara, Amar Rav Tuvi Bar Kisna Amar Shmuel Kalei Kufsa. What about begotten that you have in the shrank? You have it in the shelf. You're not wearing them. Chayovim betzitzis. They're still mechuyev in tzitzis. It's a chiv on the beged. Umoyde Shmuel bezokein she'asel lechfoidai, meaning by tachrichim shepetura. Tachrichim are potter from tzitzis if they're not being used, because my time asher tachaseba Amar Rachmana v'aylav lachsuye avida. Clearly, someone who has tachrichim has no excitement or intention or plans to use them anytime soon. So it's made not to wear, therefore you don't put on tzitzis. However, bahi shaita, when someone's nifter and now they're preparing the tachrichim to put on him, vaday raminalo, you put the tzitzis on the tachrichim. Why? Because if you don't, mishum loig l'rosh cheref aseyu. So Tosfos Nida discusses our meaning is not to put tzitzis on a mace. As a matter of fact, we passed the talus. So the question is, where does our minhag come from today? So the Mesifta over here brings down a whole bunch of different shittas from Tosfos where our minhag comes from. So I'm just going to quickly read it inside. We're going to just quickly read it inside. I see that I'm on the wrong page. I have to move weiter over here. So he brings many different svaras from Tosfos. So here we have it over here. It's even further down the book. 1 second. It's even further. Is it over here? Oh, here it is. Afalpi. Oh, here we go. The Afalpi Sha'amru. In Nida. Shemuter lahalbish lemeis klayim vein bezeh mishum loig l'rosh. Bira Tosfos Nida sheshoina he mitzvahs tzitzis sheskula keneged kol mitzvahs mishum kach im einim malbish tzitzis lemeis yesh b'os Allah gadol that he's part of this mitzvah. So even though it's unfortunate our sugya, the maskana of the Gemara seems to be that yesh lahatal tzitzis b'tachrichei ameis. Tosfos writes in Nida shaloi no hagukein. Uvetam adover. What is the reasoning for this? Zogt Tosfos as follows. Uvetam adover she'enon mehagin kedivrei Gemara mufurashes b'yira Tosfos b'cham oifan. One is ein divrei Gemara amurim elo b'yemois hachachomim shahoyu bigdeim shel dalet kanfois. In those days, the type of begodim they wore were like tunics, and they had 4 begodim. They had 4 things. So we wear a special set of tzitzis, but their regular clothing that they wore were mechuyev tzitzis. It was the norm. Everyone walked around that way. Ulefichach im lo yatilu tzitzis b'shas moisam, then yesh bo la godol shebechol chayiv kayim mitzvah tzitzis v'yato who put them in mitzvazu. It's painful for the mace. Nowadays, where our clothing are not clothing that are mechuyev in tzitzis. Lefichach ein matil in tzitzis b'misasan. V'yadarabba yesh bo la godol shebechayiv lo kiyim mitzvah tzitzis v'moisam makayim. Even those people who wore tzitzis their whole life, so this sounds interesting, because this sounds like they didn't wear a talis cotton. Nowadays, everybody wears a talis cotton. It must be that they didn't always wear a talis cotton. If they had a beggar that had 4 corners, they put tzitzis on them. But in times where they didn't have that, maybe they didn't wear talis cotton. I'm sorry? What? Well, Katina was, in the Chanami. But that's the Gemara's times. But in the Gemara's times, it seems to be that everybody wore begodim that would be normally mechuyev tzitzis. So that's the first reason why.
Why aren't you wearing tzitzis?
Because maybe in those days, most people wore such begodim. Right? In those days, everybody wore 4-cornered begodim.
Well, you said you're
wearing
excuses.
What?
You're looking for excuses.
Right, that's why you make it out of ksayna, you make it out of sardin, so you should avoid it. You make it out, you wear pelts, you should avoid it. Wear a wool beggar, then you'll be able to wear tzitzis. Beis b'toisvis hevi Rabbeinu Tam b'shem Anshi Lusir shekivon shatzitzis oila leminyan tayag. Tzitzis is a unique mitzvah. Why? Because we said it's connected kol kula, as Rashi taught us. Tzitzis is 600, and the 8 chutim and the 5 knots is 613. Lefichach masir nes tzitzis lefi shekishaloivis tzitzis nira kilumei chekayim es kol kula. V'areza nira kisheker. Bedavke bedoris harishonim itilu levishayu beemes mekayim kol kula. In the days where everyone's mekayim kol kula, so then you could go to Shemayim, you can go be buried with tzitzis that are saying I was mekayim kol kula. But now it would be a joke. The problem is, based on that, even when we're alive, we shouldn't be wearing tzitzis because it's a sheker, right? So that's the second lach. I remember my Rebbe once told me, but a Chassidim Shavuos night they say the tikkun of Leil Shavuos. Litvish don't. Why not? Because tikkun Leil Shavuos is basically a sampling of Kol HaTorah. So you're showing, I learned Kol HaTorah, and then I'm sharing samples. He says when you're on that madrega, adarabah. We learn this after with our vast understanding of Torah that we can show samples. Because if they faher us, we're going to flunk. That's the Litvish Malach.
I can explain to the Litvish as well that even what is that they know depth is also really a sample. Just a bigger quantity. They just took a little more free samples.
Yep. Let's put it this way. The sample that the Hasidim offer up, is good Torah. But if someone says over his own shtickle, if that's the sample, his own Torah could be stomach for nishtoish gehalten. So it might be a bad sample. He might not get an order based on the sampling that he's offering. Chuzid who offers a sampling of different chazal and different tanakh. So then, this is good quality merchandise. I'll give you another year to learn more because you're doing good stuff. Okay, zok more weiter. It's like when you go for hair, you say over shtickle Torah to the Rosh Yeshiva. If he likes what you say, it's a sample of who you are. I'm going to take you on. Moti's son Yosy first, he has a very good sense of humor. So when he took us for hair, he's learning by yeshiva in Lakewood. I forgot the name of the yeshiva, but when he took us for hair, Rabbi Lipschitz prepares them with like a 45-minute Dvar Torah. But most yeshivas after 5-10 minutes, so he was speaking for 10-15 minutes, and he told the Rosh Yeshiva, "You want me to continue?" So the Rosh Yeshiva says, "If you want, you can continue." So Yosy tells the Rosh Yeshiva, "Well, am I accepted based on what I said? If I am, then I won't continue." Okay, Dr. Marvaiter. B'toisus in Bava Basra, Tosfos brings from Rabbeinu Chaim Kohen that this shaila, whether or not you bury somebody in tzitzis, is totally if mitzvahs are going to be betelis lasad lavai. If there's going to be mitzvahs lasad lavai, imagine lasad lavai, the person is going to stand up with his begodim, and he doesn't have tzitzis. It's bizarreness. He needs tzitzis. He can't move. But if you hold the mitzvahs are betelis lasad lavai, so then there's no reason to bury him in the tzitzis. Now it's very interesting what we do, because we put him in his tzitzis, and then they passel it. And they passel it even before the levaya. If they would passel it right before they bury him, so then by the levaya, it's covered for him, we put him in tzitzis. And then right before they bury him, they cut the tzitzis. But the meaning is they cut the tzitzis off before the levaya. What do you mean? Akiva said they cut it off. Akiva is on the Chaver Kedisha. Could be there's different minhagim on the Chaver Kedisha. But what do they do, Bob? If they don't, they just they fold it in, so it's kosher then. So they bury him with kosher tzitzis. So it must be a shayla minhagim. How that's done? What? Akiva not good to Chaver Kedisha.
Yeah, but you know,
Are you on the
somehow
What's that?
there are different minhagim in what they do, and even when they do it, this could be in Eretz Yisrael that they go down and do it right before the kavura. That's what.
Moshe told me in Eretz Yisrael they do not bury you in the tzitzis, just the tchelos. There's no just the techrichim. There's no talis, nothing. What? Oh, because Moshe said they gave him back the talis. The Chaver Kedisha gave them the talis, so they didn't put it in. I guess there's also minhagim. This is on Har Zeisim. Are there multiple Chaver Kedisha in Har Zeisim? Or is only one Chaver Kedisha there? I remember when I was sitting Shiva, Rabbi Levine, Zecharni Levracha, Zechatzelik Levracha, came to the Shiva and he says, Yosy, whatever you're going to do, there's a minhag for it. When it comes to Avelis and these Achen, there's so many minhagim, it's vast. So you can't do anything wrong. As the Zechat Tzitrefen in a minhag, if you do whatever you do. Okay, listen, we should have a Riches Yomim Vishonim. And the Chaver Kedisha should go out of business. And the Akiva should make his money by selling refurbished for old matzevis that are being redone.
No, Baruch and I are going into the Tchelis business.
Oh, that's right. Tchelis Mordechai, you can call it. Okay. Zog to Gemara weiter.
You let out the secret, Akiva.
That's what I do. I promote. I don't do actual work.
I was thinking of going into the Kala Ilan business. Amar Rav Tuvi Bar Kisna, Amar Shmuel. I hear? Okay. Oh, so we did this already. Zog Gemara weiter. Amar Rachbo, Amar Rabbi Yehuda. Talis shenikra chutz l'shalosh. The talis that tore more than 3 fingers away from the edge. Meaning, in a place where you wouldn't be able to place the actual strings of the tzitzis. It's too far away from the edge. You're allowed to sew it up. Because there's no reason to be concerned. But shalosh, if you're within 3 fingers of the edge of the beged, lo yitpar, don't sew it up. Like we learned a couple of days ago, we're afraid that you're not going to trim the strings, and you'll use those strings hanging out to be part of your tzitzis. Tanya namihachi, Tal shenikra chutz l'shalosh yitvar, toich shalosh, Reb Meir Omer lo yitvar, v'achachamim Omer yitvar. V'shavin, everybody agrees, shelo yavi afilu ama al ama mimokam acher u'bat chelas v'toilaba. You're definitely not allowed to take a piece of fabric that's by ama that has a pre-installed tzitzis to just sew onto the edge of the beged. You can't do that. And our Bucky, our friendly neighborhood Bucky in Freie Yidden, Max told me that by the Freie Yidden, he knew exactly which sect. I'm not a mimcha in these things. What they do is they actually have clip-on tzitzis, and whenever they want to daven, they clip it onto their beged. So that's mamish what this is. It's a tas of olay min asi, and of course it doesn't work. Vishavin should maybe
these tzitzis on the Amad were kosher.
Well, they were kosher, but they were not. They're tas of olay min asi because they were on the beged the tam u'chliv tzitzis.
What's Amad? What do you mean?
Well, because once they connect it to this pair, it becomes part of a big beged. It's tas of olay min asi.
Yeah, but originally they were made as.
If it had 4 tzitzis on it, but here there's only 1 tzitz over here. Okay.
Yosy, I posted on the chat the different minhagim of what to do with the tzitzis. The idea
By
is
a
to
mace.
show that the nifter, the idea is to show the nifter is not chayav in mitzvahs anymore. So in Eretz Yisrael, they remove the talis.
Fakert, if you're trying to show that the nifs is not chayav mitzvahs, that's the biggest loig l'rosh.
No, because if you put the tzitzis on and you passel the 4 begadim, and you passel the 4th, then it's not mechuyev in tzitzis anymore. If you left it on, he would mechuyev in tzitzis.
I hear.
So,
I hear. So there's not loig l'rosh because he's not bringing a beged. Even a live person wouldn't need tzitzis for that.
Correct.
I hear. Okay, v'shavin shemevi tcheles b'makam macher v'toilaba. The halacha is you're allowed to take tzitzis off one beged and put it onto another beged. Ubilvad, the only rule is ubilvad shaloi tehei muf sekes. As long as when you take tzitzis from one and put it to another, there shouldn't be tears. It should be complete tzitzis. Which Toshvis wants to know what's the chiddush. Of course, it's got to be kosher. But whatever the case is, Shmas Mino, we see from here that Matirin mi beged lebeged. You see that you're allowed to take tzitzis from one beged and put it on another beged. So that's when you don't have a raya. Dilma de ibaloi. Maybe when the Brisa says you could do it, that means if your beged got worn out, so now you just want to take the strings off of it and put it onto a different beged. But if you have a good pair of tzitzis, mehechatesi, that you're allowed to take the tzitzis off of it. Taner Rabbanan. Talis shakula tchelis. What if you have a talis that's completely made out of tchelis? The halach is called minei tziv oinin poitrim ba. So Rashi says, what do you mean kol minei tziv oinin poitrim ba? L'shum lovan. The 2 blue ones have to be there al tchelis, but the white ones you can use any color. Why? The kivan the min knaf lekiyuma ba. Normally you put white because that's the min kanaf, but here you can't do that because it's tchelis. So Eilach lechazer acher lovan. You don't have to bedafka put white, which is the norm. El shiyuba shnei minin. It should be 2 minin. We learned a couple of days ago that when the Torah says v'nasnu al tzitzis akanov psil tcheles, tzitzis akanov means white. Why does it mean white? Because most begadim are white. That's what we learned. But here you don't have to put a white. Here you can take any color. Chutz. The only thing you're not allowed to use is kala ilan. Why can't you use kala ilan? So we're going to learn not the first pshat in Rashi, but the second pshat in Rashi. Chutz mi kala ilan, the hashnei mare shaba kaptinon. There's a hakpada from the Torah on 2 different colored threads. Ve'elu, but kala ilan, mare and shovin is the same look as tchelas, so that's why kala ilan wouldn't be allowed. But not pshat lechatchilas, but it's going to be possible. Measure freik the Gemara. Talis ain't poitaba ela mina dafke it's min, but talis shachulat tcheles maybe tcheles v'davar achar v'toilaba the kala ilan lo yavi, but for maybe kosher. So it's a stira. The first price said that it's going to be possible because it has to be a different color, and the second price says but you could use kala ilan. B'diavad it would work. Amar Rav Nachman bar Yitzchak lekasher. Kan betalos basar bol chutin, kan betalos bashmoina chutin. If you have only 4 chutin, so 2 are going to be tcheles and 2 are going to be kala ilan, that's possible. Why? Because they're all the same color. But what if I had 2 of tcheles and 2 of lovan, and then I decided to add another 4 of kala ilan? That's going to be a problem. Why? L'chatchila, b'diavad it's kosher because you have the 2 white threads, but l'chatchila you shouldn't have it because what if you sell that beged and the guy says, "Hey, listen, I have a beged that has 6 strings of tchelas. Let me take 4 off, and I could use them for a different beged." And now that different beged is going to be kala ilan, and if he puts on, if it's satin, it'll be even shatnez. So it's a l'chatchila. But I'll call upon them from this whole discussion. We see Shmas Mino Matir Mi Beged LeBeged. You see clearly that you're allowed to take from one beged to another, because if you weren't, there wouldn't be this whole chashash. So the Gemara, no, Dilma Diava, the Vadi you're not supposed to, but a guy might do it, and it could lead to shatnez. No, we learned earlier that there's no problem of Baal Tosef when you put extra strings because it's all one big gedil. It's all one big deal. So it's not a problem about Tosef. About Tosef is a problem. So if you already have 4 tzitzis and now you're adding more, that's what will be a problem about Tosef. We had that in Rashi, I think, a couple of blot ago. Zog to Gemara Vayter. If you look in the notes of the Art Scroll, someone told me that the Art Scroll says what I just told you, but could be he quotes where the Rashi is, so we can look up the Rashi inside. Does he quote where the Rashi is? Because it's a Rashi inside them. Where?
40b, no 23.
Not 23. But I want to see the Rashi. It could be it's also quoted from Rashi. So 40b is Mem Amid Beis. I thought it was earlier than Mem Amid Beis, but let me see if the Rashi is Mem Amid Beis. Oh, here it is. One second. So I don't see. Oh, here it is. It's Amarava. It's Rashi Amarava towards the Amarava. L'aylam shaloi tzarich mina asa karina bay v'hacha la'achi machshir bebasroi the koibin. No, that's not that. Rashi. But Rashi says somewhere it's not baltoisav to add extra strings. I don't see it over here. So I don't know where it is. No, that's something else. So I don't remember. There was a Rashi who said that. I don't remember where it was. Okay, let's see the Gemara weiter. Zogt a heilige Gemara weiter. Itmar Rav Omar ein matir mi beged lebeged, or Shmuel Omar matir mi beged lebeged. Machlokes number 1. Rav Omar ein madlikim miner lener an Chanukah, or Shmuel Omar madlikim miner lener. And Rav Omar ein alachik Rab Shimon begreyer, which we'll soon see, is that's Dover Shem Meschavin without a psik reisha. Ushmul Amar Lachak Rab Shimon Begreyer. Amar Abaye, Kol Mila Demar Ovid Karav. Really, my Rebbe always passes like Karav. Levar Mayhani Tlas to Ovid Kishmul, where my Rebbe passes like Shmuel. And which 3 halachas? Matirin mi beged lebeged, umadlika miner lener, v'alachi Rab Shimon Begreyer. The Tanya Rab Shimon Omer, Goyre Ada Mita, Kisei V'Savsol, across a lawn, even though it's going to create like a trench, which would be chayrish on Shabbos, Levat Shlo Yischaven, Lasas Charitz. And of course, if it's a very heavy piece of furniture that will for sure make a charitz, then that's psik reisha, that would also be not allowed. Rabbi Yehuda Moser Leila Katra. Rabbi Yehuda would give his tzitzis to the dry cleaner and let them clean it, and he wasn't concerned, Zok Rashi, that maybe the tzitzis will get damaged in the wash, and then the dry cleaner doesn't want to give him back damaged tzitzis, so he can take some other tzitzis that he has lying around, which might be kala ilon, and put them in. Rabbi Yehuda wasn't concerned about that. Rabbi Yehuda Moser Leila Katra. Rabbi Chanina Ovid Lasisa. He would make a little. He would make it into a ball. He did something that would protect it from getting damaged in the wash. And Ravina Chayit Numechet, he would make a seam to fold it into. Somebody told me that you know how on the 4 corners of our tzitzis there's like a piece of lining that's sewed on. So we always thought it's to reinforce the corner, but it used to be that lining was missing one seam. So it was actually a pocket. So when you wash it, you could strip the tzitzis there into the pocket. Right. But there are some people who do different things. I think my wife puts it into silver foil, like rolls up the tzitzis into silver foil when she washes the tzitzis. But there's different.
You put a sock around it.
You put a sock around it. There are different things that people do to protect their tzitzis because the strings unwind. So that we do different things to protect our tzitzis. Taner Rabbanan. What's that? Yeah. Taner Rabbanan. Kama chutin hunoisen. How many strings do you start with? Beishami oimim dalid, ubeisilu oimim gimel. Now we go with dalid, but Max told me that there's a shittas arrival who holds that this gimel means gimel besides the 1 string of tchelas, and it's going according to the Mandamar who holds you only need 1 string of tchelas. So it stems with our minik, because otherwise our minik follows Beishamai. This is also machlokes Rashi. Tosfos Rashi learns how much of the string should be loose. We know the ratio is 2/3 loose, 1/3 is gedil. So how much should be loose? Beishamar Dalid, the width of 4 fingers. Beisil Gimel, the width of 3 fingers. The Gimel Shebeishil is achas me'aber b'tefach. It's a thumb, which is a thicker finger, of which 4 of them would make up a tefach shal kolodim. Omer Apapa tefach Tairai says Dalid begoidel if you're using the thumb. Shis b'ktav if you're using your pinky, it's 6 fingers, and chamish b'tilsa. So I just want to stop for a moment and point out a couple of things. If 2/3, Mishuleshes means the loose strings. If 2/3 is 4 according to Beis Hill, then the gedil has to be 2 fingers, which is 1/3, so it's a total of 6 fingers. According to Beis Shammai, that's Beis Shammai. According to Beis Hill, that it's 3, meaning the loose threads are 3, and that means the gedil is 1.5, so it's a total of 4.5. Toishvis actually learns, which would still more with how we do things, is we're not talking, the Mishulesh is talking about the gedil. So if the gedil was 4, then the loose strings was 8. That's more like the size of our tzitzis. And Beis Hillel holds the gedil is 3, which would mean that the loose is 6, which is much longer, which is how we do it. We can just take a quick peek in Toisvis. Pish b'kodesh hapsil ye arba nimsa gedil shnayim. For b'atam pish gedil koi v'onav shmoina haray shnei masar. So v'chein onu noyhagin. That's how we firzach. And I would say that's how we firzach nowadays as well. Kizok to Gemara weiter. Amar Avuna Dalid 4 strings. Besoich Dalid within 4 fingers of the edge of the baguette. Umishulashes Dalid, and the amount that should be either begidel according to Toisvis or loose strings according to Rashi is Dalid. Rabbi Yudamer Gimel, you only 3 strings. Besoich Gimel, which is for sure we paskin the whole of the tzitzis where the strings go through have to be within 3 fingers of the edge of the baguette. Mishulashes Gimel, and the free strings according to Rashi has to be 3 fingers long, but according to Tosis it means that's the gedil. Amar Papa Hilchas Dalid Besoich Shalosh Mishulashes Arba. So that's how we would paskin, I guess. We have 4 fingers for the either the gedil or the strings, but the strings have to be within 3 fingers of the edge of the baguette. The memra, the islu shura. So clearly, based on this Gemara, there's a minimum shear as to the length of the tzitzis. Is that so? Or a mini tzitzis ain't tzitzis el yoyte. I mean, it sticks out like a string sticking out. They ain't tzitzis el mashu. You only need to be a mashu. There's no shiurim. Uchvar alu zikne beishame v'zikne beisil aliyah sheichem bemeseir. Varmu tzitzis ein lo shir kayaytze boy lulav ain't by shir. So my love ain't lo shir klal. So how could you say we have shiurim? So the shear that you don't have is ein la shear l'mayla. There's no shear to how long they could be. Avo yesh la shear l'mata, but of course there's a minimum shear, and I'll prove it to you. The Ilaitei Ma'achi kayaytze by lulav. The Ziknei Shammai and Ziknei Hill said that by lulav as well there's no shear. Ein la shear. How could that be? How could nami ein la shear klal? But nan lulav sheyesh by gimel tvachim kidei le'naya by kosher. So there has to be a minimum of 3 tvachim. Ella ein lo shir l'mayla, avol yesh lo shir l'mata. Hachanami by tzitzis, ein lo shir l'mayla, avol yesh lo shir l'mata. So Baruch Hashem, we were zoich to finish off Mem Aleph, and tomorrow, Baruch Hashem, we're going to learn Daf Mem Beis.
When are you learning tomorrow?
Tomorrow at 7 and at 9.
7 and 9.
Yeah. Everyone should have like a bench to vach.
Amen.
Yosy, before you close it, 2 things.